ADP has your back with Accountant Connect. The award-winning multi-client payroll management and analytics platform is a remarkably effective tool for adding value to every client engagement. Stay tuned to hear more from our sponsor, ADP Accountant Connect, later in the episode. So according to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, this is on Friday, he said, given the many problems of the PPP program, it is imperative American taxpayers know if the money is going where Congress intended, to the truly small and unbanked small businesses. Where did where did this come from?
Yeah,
that was never ever mentioned that it's for the unbanked small businesses. This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by Melio Payments. Do you have clients that are logging into their bank website to manually pay their bills, or even worse, clients that are still handwriting paper checks because the alternatives are either too complicated or too expensive? You need to introduce them to Melio Payments. Melio Payments is easy to use B2B payments and receivables. Think Venmo, PayPal, or Zelle, but for small businesses. Melio is an app that all small businesses are capable of using regardless of size, shape, or budget. By using Melio, your clients can pay their bills easier than using their bank website, and you get the processing controls you need, like support for multiple users, approvals, and two-way syncing with QuickBooks Online. Melio can also help your clients improve their cash flow by allowing them to pay their bills using their business credit cards to take advantage of up to a 45-day float until their next credit card billing cycle. Now paying the rent can lead to earning those credit card points your clients love. To learn more about Melio Payments and to get your very own Melio.me link that you can use to receive payments from your business clients, head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/Melio. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/MELIO. This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by PayPal. The line between a successful small to medium-sized business and a bankrupt one is often how much cash they have in the bank, how well they adapt to market changes, and how long they are able to remain cash flow positive during challenging times. PayPal integrates with QuickBooks Online and Xero to help put an end to cash flow problems. By using daily, weekly, and monthly forecasts, cash flow calendars, and powerful customized what-if scenarios, you can visualize your clients' finances in clear and intuitive ways so you can take action and reshape their cash flow. PayPal identifies when extra cash is needed and can match your clients with the right financing options via screen lenders, and you can choose the best offer suited for your clients' needs. Just for listeners of the Cloud Accounting Podcast, PayPal is offering its fully functional unlimited companies license for free until August 31st, 2020. Head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/PayPal. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/PAYPIE.
Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
And once again, David, we are fortunate that we have moved our recording day. It's Monday right now because we needed the whole weekend to digest everything that's been going on. And also PPP guidance came out again on Friday.
After business hours, though, of course.
Always after business hours. And also Larry Kudlow, the president's senior economic advisor, was on the Sunday shows talking about PPP. And so I've got some good stuff on that.
This is the same Larry Kudlow that he was talking about how easy it was for his wife to go into their local bank and just get approved for a PPP loan, like on day one of PPP. Remember that?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the typical experience of most small business owners is that they have, a private bank. I've got some stuff here about coronavirus and payment processors, privacy, PPP privacy, as it relates to what Kudlow said on CNN. And then also Mnuchin was at a hearing and it's basically a big uproar about whether or not these names are going to get released of people who got the loans.
Oh yeah. So I have some of that stuff too. The PPP stuff as well.
Yeah.
There's also a newer program that's now coming on the table that's going to be allowed. Like, I don't know if we talk about that. They're calling it, I think Paycheck Protection Program Advanced or something.
Oh, so this is new to me.
Yes, there's another that's being proposed on the table. I want to talk about neobanks because Wave launched a bank. So
yes.
Wave accounting software. And then I have stuff about Square and there's lots of neobank stuff. Accounting apps becoming banks becoming accounting apps, tons of articles related to all that mess.
So I would love to start with that because I think that is big news. You've been predicting this for months, if not years now. what is going on with Wave?
All right. So Wave Accounting, which we've talked about before, they got purchased by H&R Block last year sometime. They got acquired.
And they're an accounting application like General Ledger, right?
That's correct.
Historically free. You could start using it for free.
And they had like Google Ads in the side, an accounting software package that was free with like Google AdWords kind of running on the side in the margin. And then they have a payroll product. It's a full built out bookkeeping product. And there's some people that use it. And then H&R Block purchased them. And then, talking about that whole QuickBooks Live type models of, you get to get your tax and your bookkeeping under one roof for one price type model. So they've been heading down that way. And just like we've been talking, Xero, Intuit, QuickBooks, they got to become banks because the banks, are heading towards the accounting package as well. Wave had a big announcement this week. It was up on Twitter, and they said that we're shaking up the banking industry by introducing Wave Money, a first of its kind business bank account. It's a business bank account with a debit card. So no account minimums, no monthly fees, free instant payouts, built-in bookkeeping, mobile check deposit. I was surprised to see them be the first ones to do this. One of the things that they released in their press release, which I thought was interesting, just two pieces. One, it's limited release, supposedly. It's only on iOS. So if you happen to have Android, you cannot take advantage of the Wave Money app at this time. But they released a figure which is really interesting because obviously they're coming out as being fee-free. They said based on the data the Wave has for their US and Canada customers, the average Wave business owner pays more than $425 a year in annual bank fees. So if you think about this, if you're paying whatever you're paying for, let's say Wave charged, right, or Xero charges or QuickBooks charges, if you can just use a bank provided by your accounting software and not pay bank fees, it offsets the cost of your subscription for your software practically.
Right.
And then they're going to have automatic expense categorization. It's what you would expect because it's an accounting software package, right? It's just going to be the built-in bank account. So long story short, I put that out and Xero actually kind of gave me a little reply, kind of like not a hint that they're doing something, but kind of, right? They put a reply in. I was contacted by Intuit. Apparently, Intuit, believe this or not, Blake, we have failed our listeners.
Uh-oh. What did we miss?
So in March, Intuit put out a little blog post about the new features in QuickBooks Online in March. And in March, Intuit has there's a little sentence. It says, QuickBooks debit card, a physical and digital card for accessing funds stored in a QuickBooks cash account. So you and I missed it. But Intuit launched a debit card, a bank.
But to be fair, it was a blog post. There was no big announcement on social media, right? It was like, it's a soft launch.
It's a sentence in a bigger blog post about a bunch of other features.
So they're rolling this out slowly, obviously. And I think they've started doing this with a lot of features now because they don't want to overwhelm the system. Right? Imagine if they've got millions of QuickBooks Online users. If all of them tried to sign up at once, it would be a problem, right?
Well, especially going by what Wave just said. If the average business owner that uses any of these QuickBooks has $400 in banking fees and QuickBooks says, hey, here's a free bank account with no fees.
Right.
Everybody's going to switch. Yeah. It's very attractive of an idea. And essentially what this is going to do, they're tying this back into their new cash flow tool that they're releasing. And I'm sure right now the tool doesn't seem like it does much, but essentially you're going to be able to track your cash flow. You'll have this in an account. So if you pay me through Intuit Merchant Services, that goes into this account, but then I could pay bills with this credit card, but the money never leaves the QuickBooks ecosystem.
I got it.
Right? It stays inside, which is very similar to what we've seen with Square and some other ones. And then along the way, then because of that, everybody and their brother started jumping on this tweet, right? And I think we've loosely talked about, there's a freelancer banking app called Lily. They raised $10 million in seed money. So they're going, it's online banking services just for freelancers. Yeah. There's a challenger bank, Varo. Now, Varo is not really going to small business as much yet, but they just raised $241 million. They're another challenger bank jumping into this thing. There's a accounting app, Wise. So Wise is another challenger bank that's only designed for small businesses. They raised $5.7 million. And then the interesting one is there's an article about Square that I found. So why its stock is soaring and how it's threatening banks. And a couple interesting points in this article. So one thing is the banks themselves have not been focused on Squares and the accounting platforms per se.
No.
The banks have been watching, oh my gosh, Google and Amazon are wannabe banks. So they've been in Apple. So the banks have been focused on the wrong people, right? Is one argument in this. And then it goes on to talk about how Square has been building out their Cash App. And so this Cash App sounds a lot like the QuickBooks card, right? Mm-hmm. The Cash App's revenue was $528 million for Q1 of 2020 and almost triple of what it was in 2019. And yes, this Cash App can be used for some investing in some Bitcoin type plays, but even if you take out that, it's still double year over year, the revenue that are created by this Cash App. Yeah. Square customers have 1.3 billion stored in this Cash App now as of the end of April.
Wait, I want to make sure I heard that right. 1.3 billion in deposits in the Cash App?
Yes, that are stored in that right now. Got it. And Cash App is getting all this new adoption. People have used it to their cash refunds, their stimulus. Now people are taking their paychecks and directly depositing that into their Cash App account. And then that Cash App account it's a debit card. It can be used for other places, but they also have a little bit of a play similar to these Robinhood where you can invest from this account directly, buy Bitcoin and do other recurring purchases. So Square Capital, they facilitated another 75,000 loans for the first quarter, totaling another $548 million, an 8% growth. Square has distributed $520 million in the Paycheck Protection Program. And more they're consolidating in this industry. And the interesting point in this article that I think people should take note of, and I'll just read this verbatim from the article here. So this article was in Forbes. With the consolidation happening in the payment space, however, banks should be concerned about who might acquire Square. And Intuit acquisition of Square would be complementary to the firm's small business capabilities as well as the newly acquired Credit Karma unit.
Yeah, I think it would.
So this could be a way for Intuit to if Intuit's to acquire Square, they're now a serious bank, even more than what Intuit could be on their own. Right. And not to mention the competitive side, all the other stuff they get with the swipe and the retail terminals. And it's now, there's no numbers on this. So just speculating, like how big of an acquisition do you think that would be?
I don't know. I mean, Square is enormous, right?
$20 billion.
Square market cap. Square's market cap as of June 12th, 2020 is $38 billion. So I don't know. So can Intuit swallow a $38 billion company? Intuit's market cap is $73 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. So Square's big.
Yeah. Monstrous.
And I've got a story about Square, though, that is not quite so flattering.
Oh, really?
Yes. So this was in the Wall Street Journal. The headline is Hit by Coronavirus and a 30% holdback by the payment processor. Apparently, processors like PayPal, Stripe, Square, and WorldPay are making some businesses wait additional days or weeks to access funds deposited to their accounts, citing the need to protect themselves against possible losses when people who have bought airline tickets, vacation packages, and some other goods and services seek refunds. An example of this is Bluebonnet Photography. They're a portrait studio in Tacoma. On May 6th, Square emailed the owner saying that it would start holding 30% of each of Bluebonnet's transactions for 120 days to, quote, protect you and Square from unexpected loss events. Basically, Square and PayPal and Stripe and WorldPay are increasing their loss reserves to cover chargebacks, which apparently have jumped dramatically during the pandemic. People are backing out of stuff that they bought in advance, like travel purchases. And if they can't cancel, they're charging back. People are also doing chargebacks just because they can't pay, right? And they don't want to pay for something. That's happening in some cases. And so,
especially if you're not getting a good or service delivered because of
COVID. Right. But also just people are like, I got to get my credit card balance down. Maybe I'll just do some chargebacks. So chargebacks are normally 0.05% of credit card transactions. So before the pandemic, 0.05%, this is just like a leaky pipe. Nobody really cares that much because it's not a big deal in the big scheme of things. And so like Square and PayPal, they can absorb those losses if they don't pass them on to the merchants. Normally they do, but sometimes they can't collect because the merchant then goes out of business. They're out, right? They have to cover that. So that's why they have these amounts set aside to cover their losses.
And historically, it's been, I think you just said a 0.5% historically?
It's 0.05% of credit card transactions.
And that was historically, and you said this is increased now.
In certain categories, like travel, chargebacks are as high as 40% right now. So
I understand that.
Yeah, just massive jump, right? So this is rolling downhill to some businesses that are in certain types of industries like photography, right? Well, what do a lot of photographers do? Weddings. Weddings are getting canceled or changed, and maybe somebody doesn't want a photographer for a virtual wedding. So that company, even if they're not doing a lot of weddings, got hit with this new policy by Square because it's very impersonal. It's just based on your industry. So the owner was really upset because their company, this Bluebonnet company, never had a disputed transaction in 3 years with Square. So Square, here's the big picture effect, right? That's the small impact on the business owner. You know, holding onto your money for 120 days, like it's crazy. This is one of the things that PayPal has done for a long time that really, really pisses off business owners. I mean, I had a client when I was in practice who got hit with a policy like this with PayPal and was processing all of his business's online transactions through PayPal and just totally screwed up his cash flow. And there was nothing he could do about it. So eventually he got away from them, but it took him like half a year because they were holding onto his money for that long and they're allowed to do that. So here's the big picture impact. Square reported a $106 million loss for the first quarter because it had to triple the amount it set aside to cover potential losses on transactions and loans. And there's a chart here in the Wall Street Journal showing how much Square has set aside, and they'd more than tripled it. Now they're setting aside $109 million to cover future losses. And PayPal, which is much larger, has increased from a little below 400 million to a little below 600 million in loss reserves.
It'll be interesting to see if they use this as a way, as a stick to push people into their Square card, their Square Cash. No, Square, what's it called? We just said the name of it.
So there's Square Cash, Cash App.
Yeah.
And then PayPal, I mean, obviously PayPal's the original one, right? Where you can have like a PayPal balance. Yeah. I don't
hey, if you use Square Cash, instead of moving the money out to your bank, you only have to have a 2-day reserve or something. I don't know, right? But that 120 days is pretty aggressive.
So Square said to this reporter that less than 1% of customers were impacted by this increase in reserve accounts. But, you know, that's a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
So watch out for that.
So just two other tech becoming banks. So Alibaba is like the Amazon of China. Mm-hmm. But they also can shop on them. Now they have Alibaba.com, which is American small businesses can sell things on that. They and Amazon have both now launched financing.
Yes, I heard about this.
So you can get loans, and use that if you're an e-commerce seller to pay your invoices. And a lot of times it's like that, right? You have to buy inventory to sell inventory, and you need that elbow room.
Specifically, it's for businesses that sell on these platforms. So they're financing their sellers. Yeah.
They're financing their sellers, and Amazon actually took it a step further. They initially Amazon wanted to create like a marketplace where all the online lenders could come in and make loans to the Amazon sellers. And now Amazon just did an exclusive deal with Goldman Sachs. They can only get an option for a loan now through the Goldman Sachs Amazon product, combined product. And the loans.
And these aren't small credit lines. These are credit lines of up to $1 million. The interest rate is not that great, though. Fixed annual interest rates of 6.99% to 20.99%. And can be drawn and repaid just like a regular credit card. So I guess that's better than what some of these lenders are charging.
The interesting thing about this is Amazon is very about owning their customers. We own the experience through our customers or Amazon. This is the first time Amazon's going to let a third-party financial institution make decisions about their sellers. So Goldman's making the underwriting decisions on their own, not Amazon. So it's almost in a weird way they're kind of getting out of the banking game.
Well, I think it makes sense for Amazon because Amazon is so capital intensive. They have to open these warehouses and buy all these automation robots and machines. And that's where they need to invest their capital, not in loaning out money to small businesses. So this is a smart move in that respect, because then Amazon can take its profits, plow that into more warehouses everywhere so they can do the one-day delivery everywhere in the country, which is what they're aiming to move to. Is to be able to get every product to everyone in a day or even same day, which, that's a completely different experience buying online than having to wait. First it was a week, then they brought it down to 2 days. If they can get it to 1 day, same day, I mean, I don't think traditional retail has a shot.
You're right. It does feel strange when you do order something and it's like, it has to take 5 days. You almost feel like there's something broken. Like, what do you mean it has to take 5 days? Like, this doesn't make sense.
Well, that's been the weirdest thing about the pandemic for me when it comes to Amazon is, at the beginning of it, everything was delayed, right? And it was like going back to that normal 3 to 5 day period to wait for something, or even longer. It's just funny. It's funny how quickly we get used to having everything ASAP. That hasn't been around for very long. It's only been a few years. So
we get comfortable with it for sure.
Yeah. Some more app news. Well, we were talking about QuickBooks, so we should mention that QuickBooks Online has some updates. They have done a lot of improvements to their reporting in QuickBooks Online recently. They've been optimizing the platform to support large reports with 2 times enhanced data limits and search functions, smoother scrolling, and enhanced navigation to help drill down into report details. You now get smart page breaks and repeat page headers. So if you're printing those reports to PDF, you get the formatting that you want. You can actually repeat the headers on each report page, which is important in case those pages get mixed up. You can reorder your comparison columns, create multiple comparisons, such as period, year to date, previous period, previous year, and previous year to date in a single report. And you can reorder those columns as preferred. You can save, collapse, and expanded sections. That's a big one. Like, it's just so annoying. When you save a report and you collapse certain sections in QuickBooks, it used to not save that. So you'd have to then, every time you generate the report, collapse the sections and open the sections that you wanted to show. So now that'll save on your custom reports. And then you can also edit section titles. So you can change titles, section titles on reports to align with your company terminologies. So you can change that on the profit and loss and balance sheet reports. So I don't know, for instance, if you wanted to display net income and something else, right? For a not-for-profit, then you could, because it's not income.
These are big wins for accountants and bookkeepers, because like usually you're running these reports over and over and over again for clients. So anytime settings stick, right, the page break settings stick, you're not having to adjust and play games over and over and over again. So these are huge feature wins for.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot better. And it's funny, I was in Xero this weekend doing some work, and I noticed also their reporting has gotten a lot better in terms of like just being able to quickly, change columns and do prior period comparisons and stuff. So I think everybody is upgrading that aspect.
Got it. So staying on the QuickBooks for a moment, did you know that they canceled QuickBooks Connect in San Jose?
Yes.
So that got canceled. Yeah. I think we didn't talk about it last week when it happened, but so as of now,
I'm just running with the assumption that everything is canceled until the end of the year.
As of right now, the only in-person conference that I think is still on the table is Joe Woodard's Scaling New Heights. It got moved from St. Louis to Orlando, and it's going to take place, I think, at the Marriott. And there's actually a webinar this week with him talking about like an update on the status of that conference in Florida. So I guess it all depends on how COVID goes, whether or not this happens. But that's the last in-person conference, and I'm hoping it happens. Like, I want to go and see people. I want to give hugs to our accountants friends. Like, it's
no hugs, David. No hugs. No hugs. I know it sucks, but I just don't think this is wise. It's the value derived does not overcome the risk, in my opinion. It's just not worth it because it's not necessary. And I'm a big, you and I talk about this offline. I'm a big proponent of opening up. Part of the reason I moved to Arizona from California is because I was sick of not being able to do stuff in California. But I think it's when it's necessary. I mean, it may not even matter because I don't know how many people are going to go. That's a big question, right? Same thing as when the schools open in the fall, right? How many people are actually going to put their kids in school? I think it's going to be like half. And I wouldn't be surprised if attendance at Scaling New Heights is half. And can the show even work with half the attendance? Does it even make sense economically?
Yeah, I don't know those questions. I do. Yeah. The whole social distancing is also weird because if you're at a conference and everybody has to stay 6 feet apart.
Like what's the point of that, right?
The point of the conference is that close interactions with people, and it's not a Zoom meeting, but if you're 6 feet apart and you're wearing a mask, like we might as well be on a Zoom at this point, right?
The mask is, at least on a Zoom, I don't have to wear a mask, right?
Yeah, I could see people's faces. I don't know. I'm really hoping we are over some level of this COVID thing, like, that there's a cure, whatever you want to call it, an antibody, et cetera, vaccine. But I just want the need for it is so important right now. Like, it would be amazing to be able to go. It'd be amazing to see you, Blake, give you a hug, right? Like, it would be amazing.
It would be great.
Like, I wish we could. Hopefully, we'll be able to get there, because it's sad that every single event in our industry has been canceled. Every single one of them.
No, I agree with you. It sucks. I'm just not that optimistic. Maybe they'll bundle the vaccine with the. You show up in Orlando and you get a vaccine.
Yeah. App news. Do you hear about FreshBooks?
Yeah. So Twyla Verhelst is launching the Accounting Professionals Program at FreshBooks. She's a CPA who joined FreshBooks, which is based in Toronto, about 2 months ago. And I got to know Twyla because she co-founded, is it Helm?
Helm, that's correct.
A cash flow application in 2018. Really interesting to see FreshBooks finally launching an accountant's program. Although I think maybe they had like one a long time ago, but it didn't get a bunch of...
I feel like they dabbled in this about 5 or 6 years ago. Back when Doug Sleater when it was still SleaterCon, I think FreshBooks showed up.
Yeah, and because I remember getting like I signed up for their accountants program back in the day, and I got like a really nice care package, like with a personalized letter saying, "Thanks, Blake, welcome to the program." And by the way, I go way back with FreshBooks. When I started my bookkeeping business, and I was just a freelancer in like 2009, I was billing by the hour, right, doing QuickBooks Pro Advisor work and bookkeeping, and I used FreshBooks, the mobile app, when it was one of the only mobile apps to track my time when I was driving around doing all that stuff. And then I would invoice my clients. And I found it to be the easiest way to do that.
One thing I thought was interesting in these press releases about this is this kind of loose words. They're inspired by a collaborative accounting approach in which accounting professionals and their small business clients work together as a team, sharing bookkeeping tasks. And I kind of read this and I almost start to feel like it, because FreshBooks, they're focusing on bringing together modern accounting firms with small businesses. Like, is this heading towards another QuickBooks Live model, right? I mean, there's not a lot of details past that, but is it another similar model where, it's going to be this gray area between accountants and the small business owners?
I hope not, because I think we've got enough of that now. I mean, look, you mentioned it with the Wave cash announcement. Like, one of the things that Wave offers when you sign up is the bookkeeping software is free, but then they'll try to sell you stuff like payment processing and bookkeeping. You can buy bookkeeping through Wave. But if you're going to create an accountant's program, it's probably better not to compete directly with the accountants in your partner program. So I don't think they will do that. I think it's great. If I were an accountant, I am, but if I were in practice, if I had my practice, I would sign up for this ASAP, because FreshBooks has millions and millions and millions of customers. They are the dominant GL actually in North America. I think they have more users by user count than QuickBooks. Now, granted, that's because they count it differently. It's not orgs, it's users. But
yeah. But if QuickBooks are counted that way, QuickBooks would have 80 million, right? Like, just because you send somebody an invoice and they click pay, that doesn't make them a user, right? Like, it's the way they count. But another thing is, I mean, they flat out say in here, the program will connect its members with FreshBooks customers seeking analytics, reporting, and business strategy coaching from an accounting professional. Like, it's very clear they're going to play middleman. Well,
connecting is different than like processing payments and, managing a billing relationship. So we'll see exactly what you mean, what is meant by that. But hopefully, if it's a traditional program, it's like they have a directory. You can look up a FreshBooks professional who will then, work with you on that platform.
Yeah, and they talk about that. They said it'll gain access to a collaborative community, innovative tools and technology, personalized training and education, and dedicated support for the accountants or bookkeepers. So yeah, some part of this does feel like a typical accountants program you've seen with other accountants. It's at some level, it is a little surprising, like why it took a decade really for FreshBooks to finally jump in to this. But
because they had a really successful direct model, right? They were able to go directly to small, businesses, professionals, freelancers, and find them online. And maybe they've saturated that, and now they're looking to expand further. They also, when they started, it was single entry accounting. So most accountants were not interested in using that. They would take their clients and switch them onto QuickBooks immediately, so that they could actually do, double entry accounting. And FreshBooks I haven't used the product since they announced it, so I'm not totally sure if it's full double entry, but they added that capability. So now it's like a competitor potentially to Xero, to QuickBooks.
Yeah,
so
you don't have to pull your clients off of it or use it and then have them sync, right? And that was always a strategy people could use with FreshBooks, right? Like, okay, fine, stay in FreshBooks, do your invoicing in FreshBooks, and then sync that data over to QuickBooks somehow, right? And then I can do the bookkeeping.
And that's actually exactly what I did with one of my largest clients. I had them doing all their invoicing in FreshBooks, and I would sync the data into Xero with various levels of success.
BQE Core had an announcement. They are going to now integrate with Tax 1099. So essentially, you can now, if you're using BQE Core to manage all your vendor relationships, you can actually onboard to Tax 1099 automatically. So you can file your 1099 forms, et cetera. So it's very similar to the way Tax 1099 is integrated with other apps. It's just now a niche app. BQE Core is really going to start doing that as well. This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by ADP Accountant Connect. How can you stay on top of your game and still have time to think more strategically? Or how do you keep up with all the COVID-19 related stimuli programs to make sure your clients have the documentation to get their piece of the pie? By using ADP's award-winning multi-client payroll management and analytics platform called Accountants Connect. Be your client's go-to guru by leveraging Accountant Connect's tools and resources to strengthen your strategic advisory role while boosting the efficiency of your traditional tax and accounting services. With ADP Accountant Connect, you can process payroll and easily integrate payroll data to the popular accounting systems like QuickBooks, Xero, and Sage, and handle your clients' needs anywhere at any time. And because ADP Accountants Connect was designed by accountants for accountants, it includes so much more. You can take a CPE course on trending topics, provide your clients with benchmarking data, access a tax resource library, calculators, ebooks, even template letters for communicating with your clients. And it's free. Head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/ADP. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/ADP. ADP has your back with Accountant Connect.
So I don't know about you, but I've been getting email after email after email from companies with their Black Lives Matter message. And at first it was like really cool, but then it just started to get repetitive, like the same way as soon as COVID-19 hit, some companies jumped on it and sent out the really, on point messaging saying, we're here to support you. We're doing everything we can. The messages of encouragement, which at first are great, but then they start to get repetitive and you can see these companies just putting out messages, they're just doing what everyone else did. Does that make sense? So last week I got an email from CalCPA with the CEO's statement about diversity. Anthony Pugliese outlined his 90-day plan to enact programs and actions aimed at building a more diverse and inclusive environment for CalCPA members. So here's what they're doing. They're signing a pledge to publicly affirm CalCPA's commitment to equity and inclusion. They're forming a member-led diversity, equity, and inclusion committee to lead efforts in creating meaningful programs, resources, and outcomes for CalCPA members. So diversity committee. They are going to, via this committee, address specific goals, standards, and practices designed to identify and address racial inequities and establish specific metrics to measure progress on said goals. And they're going to join state CPA societies across the nation, sharing best practices for achieving a more just and equitable professional association. This reminds me of kind of like all the stuff I've seen from some of the CPA firms that are out there that are making statements saying, we're signing a pledge, we are creating a committee, we're going to come up with a plan. I don't mean to call out CalCPA, it's just this is the email I got that I noticed that stuck out to me. But it seems like all of these plans and stuff, like they always result in a committee being formed, a plan being a statement that we're going to make a plan, and then like nothing really ever happens. Like I remember all of this with women in accounting recently. And has the number of female partners really increased all that much in large firms? No, I think we're still under 20%. And we've been talking about diversity in accounting for 50 years, and nothing has really changed. As we discussed on one of the last episodes, the percentage of African American CPAs is 1% in CPA firms. And I found out that partners, it's 0.3%, right? And the population is like 13 to 15% Black. So like we are not making much progress. It's about the same as it's been. And it's frustrating, right? It's annoying to get these messages where it doesn't feel like action is actually happening, that it's just words being said.
Like it's I guess we got to put out our statement too. And everybody's just it's the checklist. Like, yep, all the other state societies did it. We need to do it too, but nobody's actually truly implementing plan. Like there's a meeting, they create the email, and then you kind of feel like nothing ever really happens after that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about this over the last few weeks is this, the protests are happening. Black Lives Matter is the top news story every single day for over 2 weeks. And, it's just sticking in my head. And I think to myself, we know exactly how to solve this problem as accountants. We know exactly what we should do. And we just aren't willing to do it. And you know what that is?
What is this, Blake?
So there's some hope in this Cal CPA message because he calls out addressing specific goals, standards, and practices designed to identify and address racial inequities. Accountants are about quantifying. We are about setting goals and metrics and measuring progress to those goals and metrics. So if we want to make our firms more diverse, how do we do it? Create a KPI for diversity in your firm and stick that on the dashboard that all the partners, or at least the managing partner, is looking at every week. Because firms are really, really good at measuring stuff like utilization, realization, billable hours. Right? All the best firms are obsessed with looking at that data very frequently.
And then tie bonuses and partner payouts to this KPI.
Exactly. And put that at the top. So start measuring, what percentage of your staff at every single level in the firm is diverse. And it could be as simple as, here's the percentage of white males, and then here's everybody else. You could also break it down by gender too. I think that would be helpful. So you have two. You have gender diversity and racial diversity. And that's a number. It's a percentage for every role in the firm, right? Every level of promotion all the way up to partner. And you display that publicly. And then you say, here's what we aim for it to be, right? You set a goal and then you make it happen. Right? If you don't do that, it's not going to happen. And we know that as accountants, right? If you don't set a goal, if you don't set a budget, basically, then it won't happen. So that's what needs to happen. We need to set a budget for diversity and then figure out how to make it happen. It seems kind of obvious to me, actually. So you have like a diversity KPI. Put that on your firm dashboard. And then,
or even at the state society levels, they should be tracking it and reporting on that every quarter, like what the numbers are.
Ask every firm to report diversity, and then give awards to firms that increase diversity, that improve that. I mean, it's just abysmal. And it was what was really weird, I think, for me working in a big firm was seeing how many of the staff are diverse. So many women, right? It's like 50% or more women in accounting at the staff level. In my classes, it was like 60% or more. A lot of diversity. In Southern California, tons of Asian folks are getting into accounting, right? That is no surprise to anyone who worked in accounting in California, and yet they represent hardly any of the partners. No Black people in the partnerships. It's all white men as partners. And, that actually worked out really well for me, right? As a white guy, all the partners, it's completely obvious that the way that you get promoted in an accounting firm is when people like you. And people who are in positions of power, who are partners, are more likely to like you and give you work if you look like them, if you look like their kids, right? It's obvious. And that's the sort of unintentional, not direct form of racism, but it is a form of racism. And this is the other thing about accounting that I have noticed. We like to think that we are objective and that promotions are based on who has the most realization, utilization, billable hours.
Billable hours, the most billable hours.
But how do you get billable hours? People have to give you work. And how do you get work from people? Well, first you got to be good at the job, but more importantly, they got to like you. So if partners like you, right, if they identify with you, then they're going to give you good work. And good assignments are what get you the billable hours that you need to hit your goals. Partnerships are clubs, right? So it's just the same problem where you have a club that's a bunch of white men. They're going to recruit people subconsciously or consciously that are like them, because that's how people are. We like people who look like us. And so unless you do something consciously to counteract that, that's going to perpetuate itself. And that is exactly the situation that we have been in accounting for years and years. You have to actively push diversity in your firm, or it will, by the nature of the way partnerships work, it will perpetuate a lack of diversity. So does that mean that you set a target for recruitment and you specifically say, we are going to hire X% diverse people and we are going to promote X% diverse into our partner ranks? If you want to make it happen, then that's the best way to do it. Actually set a target and say, we must, in our next partner class, have X% diversity.
And it may have to be a longer timeline because fundamentally, like we've talked about these numbers before, the number of minorities that are graduating with accounting degrees, right? And then as they move up the ladder, right, you're probably not going to make somebody who just got out of college.
No, it takes time.
It takes time. But what's happening is even if an accounting firm mentally says, okay, we're going to promote somebody that's diverse, they might actually not have anybody on their staff yet that's up to that level to become a partner. And it's like, so it could be very hard to see a progress in a quarter, but over 3-4 years, like there should be less excuses for it not happening.
You got to do it at all stages of the funnel. Because a lot of the problem is, like, especially with women, we don't have a problem recruiting women into accounting firms. That's not a problem. There's plenty of women entering accounting, but they leave somewhere between manager and partner. And why? There's lots of answers as to why. If you really want to make women stay, then you need to, like, at that point say, we are going to make sure that we have 50% women going from manager to senior manager, and then 50% from senior manager to partner. And we're going to change how the firm operates to make that happen, right? If women are leaving because of a specific reason, we need to fix that. And same thing with, other diversity targets. You can't just say, like, oh, we have a system that is, like a colorblind system can still be racist. That's one of the things that I've learned over the last few weeks, because if it perpetuates the situation, then it's, systematically racist. So anyway, that's me. I'll step down off of my soapbox here on that.
To summarize, the premise is you got to start tracking it. If we don't start tracking it at the CPA, at the state societies, et cetera, firms aren't going to track it themselves. And they don't reward the behaviors, right, along the way.
And go out and recruit on campus at places that are, historically Black or, more diverse. Like, yeah, you actually got to go do it too. But that alone is not enough. So PPP?
Yeah, let's jump in. You want to talk about Mnuchin? Do you want to talk about Rubio? Like, what do you want to?
Well, so let's just talk about the new guidance that came out on Friday. So effective January 12th, the SBA and Treasury announced some new and revised guidance regarding the Paycheck Protection Program. So I think we're on the 14th interim final rule. Rather than releasing another interim final rule, they revised the first one. So this was a revision to the first interim final rule. The eligibility threshold for those with felony criminal histories has been changed. The look-back period has been reduced from 5 years to 1 year to determine eligibility for applicants or owners of applicants who, for non-financial felonies, have been convicted, pleaded guilty, pleaded no contest, or been placed in any form of parole or probation. So it's still 5 years for felonies involving fraud, bribery, and embezzlement or false statement in a loan application. But for non-financial crimes, it's only a year. And that was the only change that I spotted on Friday with PPP and actually the way that it operates. The thing that really stuck in my head was over the weekend, Larry Kudlow, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, was on CNN on Jake Tapper's State of the Union program on Sunday and said some things that have created a bit of controversy. He said that the Trump administration never promised to release the names of businesses that received PPP loans as part of the CARES Act. And this was in response to questioning about Steven Mnuchin on Wednesday, who said that he told Congress that the SBA is not going to release the names of the businesses that received PPP loans. And now there's people in Congress who are like upset about this, right? Because transparency. The administration promised transparency. And I'm not sure exactly what the administration promised. I do recall them promising transparency in the program because it's $600 billion. And you need some transparency to make sure that people, who ought to have got the money, right?
Well, some of it is to Mark Rubio, right?
Yeah, Marco Rubio. Yeah, he was saying that
on April 29th, he insisted we are going to know one way or another who got this money. So he was all about releasing this,
Yeah.
right? We will make them do it. He was all about releasing this. But now, since Mnuchin went on and had his testimony, right? And
They walked it back.
And walked it back. And now he's saying, yeah, he's changed his course. Maybe it is proprietary information. So Rubio's completely flip-flopped on this point of view. But then if you really...
and just to add to that, David, so the SBA also previously had said that the names would be released. And on the application, it says that you agree that your name and address may be released as part of a Freedom of Information Act request. So this was planned.
Because historically, all SBA loans, that information is released.
Yeah. You can go find that out. Yeah, it's taxpayer money, right?
Yeah. And there's the argument whether they should or shouldn't. And I argue that I come from the point of view that we should, because the key is just to get insight of who kind of got sweetheart deals and who, if they're connected to people in politics. Like, we need to see that. It needs to be disclosed, right? They think it's going to be, well, if we know that this company got this much of a loan, that means their payroll is this much, and it's going to be a competitive advantage for their competitors and all. But not if everybody's out there.
Yeah,
it's not competitive for anybody.
That's the main argument, is that because the loan is calculated based on payroll amounts, you could, knowing the amount that somebody got for their loan, you could figure out what their annual payroll is. And that is proprietary information and should not be released. Yeah. I guess like that could be competitive intelligence, but given that these companies agreed that this information could become public.
The other problem I have with this is just, so there's an article, I'm in an article from Politico. Basically, Mnuchin's been, testifying to Congress, right, and talking about oversight of this. And there's like this revisionist history happening on what the purpose of the Paycheck Protection Program was. So, Blake, what was the purpose of the Paycheck Protection Program?
Well, I'm still not clear on that. It was either small, depending on who is talking, it was either small business stimulus or it was to protect, keep people off unemployment.
Okay. So according to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, this is on Friday, he said, given the many problems of the PPP program, it is imperative American taxpayers know if the money is going where Congress intended, to the truly small and unbanked small businesses. Where did this come from?
Yeah,
that was never ever mentioned that it's for the unbanked small businesses.
Yeah. Well, and the way the program was designed, it was specifically for businesses that already had banking relationships because they went through the banks. Like anyone with a brain could have seen that was what was going to happen. And I think that if they release the names and information about these loans, that's what we'll find, is that it's the well-connected small businesses, the larger small businesses that have accountants and lawyers who can help them get these loans that got the money. And
that was very obvious in round one. That first $350 million, it was very obvious who got stacked up, who got prioritized, and they got a sweetheart deal when it was supposed to be open to everybody on day one.
Yeah.
And that's what they're afraid is going to be exposed.
Yeah.
Right? Is that people stack these things arguably illegally.
And, I was talking with my dad about this, and he had a good point, which is that, like, he doesn't think the names will become public because there may be a lot of wealthy, Republicans and Republican-owned businesses where, they got these loans and they wouldn't want their names to become public. But you could say the same on the Democratic side. And
it's all politicians are connected to people.
Right.
Yeah.
So
this is not a Republican-Democrat thing.
The leadership, right, in Congress probably would, on both sides, probably would not be too sad if these names never came out, because it would just create a hassle for them on all fronts.
Oh, I'm sure this is posturing, right? This is political posturing on all fronts. But not only that, so it's not just... So the SBA, they're withholding information from the Government Accountability Office. So not even just information about who requested the loans, but they don't even know, like, if they can't get data from the SBA separating out the loans and separate economic disaster injury loan program. Like the GOA confirmed on Friday that has received no information about not even information of when the SBA will provide the data. So they can't get a response from the SBA.
Now, I wonder how much of that is malicious and how much is just they're overwhelmed and they don't have the capability of getting them that information quickly enough. I think a lot of this is posturing. right? And it's a negotiating position. Is the position the administration is taking right now is maximum privacy, and that they're going to end up compromising. So the Democrats in Congress will look like they forced the administration to release information. In the end, it will only be information on loans over a lot of money, over a few $1 million is going to get released. And then, the press will have fun going through and, picking out businesses who, should they have got the money? Should they not? Look at this mom and pop that went under, but this, big meat packing plant was able to keep going, even though they're making tons of money, right? That sort of thing. So that's where they'll end up. And nobody in Congress wants all the names to get out there, because I can guarantee you that so many of those names are going to be like, donors, people who don't want the names to get out there, who have influence.
Yeah. And there's a letter that Senator Kamala Harris and Democratic Senator from California and Representative Katie Porter, Democrat California, they were an open letter on Friday. And one of the sentences in it really makes a lot of sense, and I think kind of can summarize this, right? It is impossible to know to the extent of the PPP's problems or its successes without access to the data, right? And we even had somebody write a review that you and I were too harsh about the success of PPP. But without the data, none of us can celebrate this or criticize its problems.
Yeah.
If the data is not available to us, to both sides, right? It's just not available.
So maybe the administration is also stalling, hoping that the economy improves over the next few months and then nobody cares anymore, and the PPP will get credit for a lot of that success, which, happened with the May unemployment numbers. PPP, in every article I read about the unemployment numbers, the Paycheck Protection Program got credit for at least some of that $2.5 million, or 2.5 million jobs that was saved. Yeah, so that's the controversy about the privacy. We'll see what happens with that. In terms of the actual forgiveness, there's still calls in Congress to make the forgiveness application simpler, because it's 11 pages right now and it's pretty complicated.
Gene Marks wrote up another opinion piece for the Washington Times about the Paycheck Protection Program is a success, except for one big issue. And you can skip the whole article and skip all the way down to the part where it's the forgiveness application. It's just impossible. And again, his argument is just call this what it is. It's a grant, and move on. Let small businesses move on.
Well, and again, I would set a threshold. So loans under a certain amount, just automatically forgive them. Just do it. And if they did that, that would encourage the businesses who haven't yet applied to apply and get the rest of the 100 billion or more that is still in the pot available to be taken. The second round has not been used up. And I think the big reason is that most businesses, the small ones without the accountants and the lawyers, are too scared to take the money because they don't know how to do these forms. I mean, these forms are challenging for accountants. Do you think your typical small business owner is going to be able to do them or want to do them? No. And then they worry about, just getting saddled with additional debt if it doesn't turn out to be a grant. And that's the uncertainty is the problem.
So do you want to chat a little bit about kind of these new funding programs that we're going to be talking about for the next 8 to 12 weeks that are coming onto the radar?
Yeah, I've been so focused on PPP that I haven't really been paying attention to
it's leveled up. Okay. Are you ready? So a group of Democratic senators have introduced a new Paycheck Protection Program. Okay. Only for small businesses with 100 or fewer employees, including sole proprietorships and self-employed, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you ready for the name of this?
Well,
okay. To be eligible for the Prioritized Paycheck Protection Program. So it's now 4 Ps.
The 4P program.
So to be eligible, you must have already spent a PPP loan. So you got your loan, you used it all up.
Okay, well, that's where they're screwing up in the first place.
And prove that you had a revenue loss of 50% or more due to the pandemic.
Oh, God. So, see, they're already screwing up because if they want smaller businesses to get the money, then those businesses didn't get PPP loans already. And then you're making them prove a revenue loss with more paperwork? Like, what is it about simplifying stuff that Congress just doesn't get? I mean, that's a stupid question given that they've written the tax code. So that's coming down the pipe. There's not a lot more on that just yet, but just for the 4P, or P4 is coming. So that's a proposal in Congress, but we don't know if that's going to go anywhere because the administration is not. They are not making encouraging sounds about more stimulus.
Yeah, but who's involved in this proposal is Ben Cardin, he's the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business. Like, so this may come off as kind of, it's just an idea, who's introducing it, but you look who's introducing it. This is the person that has a lot of influence over the SBA, et cetera. So, and then we talked about the Main Street loan program before.
Main Street lending program.
Which is not for Main Street businesses, it's for huge businesses.
Right.
So they've changed the guidelines for that already. Hasn't even started, and they've changed the guidelines. So now the minimum loan amount will be $250,000. Before it was $500,000, and the maximum now could be up to $300 million from the previous $200 million. So they're already changing this, and this loan program is really ramping up to start next week. It's days away from making its first loan, is what it says in the article. And so this is the whole another set of money that's going out that's going to have to be tracked, going to have to be reported on. But this is different because this is loans directly from the Fed. So this is just how the Fed gives banks loans. They're going to give loans to businesses, large businesses. And so this is a whole nother thing we're going to see. They're going to provide $75 billion in equity that can be used up to $600 billion in lending.
Right.
So this program's about to roll out, and it's already getting changed. And then I know we talked, I hinted at this a couple weeks ago. I was like, well, probably, when we were talking about why there should be forgiveness, right? Just get this off of people's plates because there's new things to worry about. Well, U.S. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin said the administration is considering reimbursing businesses whose storefronts were damaged in the recent rioting. So there's going to be a whole new set of programs that are going to be out there for small businesses that were damaged because of the rioting.
Well, hopefully
more programs to track, more programs to report on.
Hopefully that paperwork will be a lot easier.
Well, the good news for accountants and bookkeepers, there's going to be plenty of work for you. There's plenty of work for you regarding this stuff.
It's true. It's a stressful time for the community, and you can just see that in Twitter. But it's also an opportunity. There's so much work to be had if you're willing to jump on these programs and figure out how they work and help your clients get funding. Well, that's all the time we got.
Yeah, I'd love for people to give us a call our voicemail, and let us know what you're doing possibly for diversity in your own firm. If you have any ideas or whatever you're doing to address diversity in your own firm, we'd love to kind of hear their ideas on a way to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Ways to measure it.
That number is 202-695-1040, 202-695-1040. It's a Google Voice number. It'll go straight to voicemail and leave us a message. We'll take a listen and we'll play it on the air. And if you want to reach me online, I'm at Blake T. Oliver on Twitter. How about you, David?
I'm on Twitter and actually all the socials. I'm at David Leary.
So reach out. Let us know what you think. Give us a follow. Thanks for listening. We'll see you here next week.
Time for the classifieds. Still sending spreadsheets of unclassified expenses to clients? Automate this process and get client answers instantly with Client Hub's QuickBooks Online integration. This feature was described as one that only an accountant would have come up with, as it solves a real big pain point. Client Hub is a modern client portal designed for cloud accounting firms. Get started today with a free trial at clienthub.app and enter promo code CAP25 for 25% off your first 3 months. Did you know that in response to the COVID-19 situation that you can now take your Microsoft Excel certification from home? Want to learn how? You can by joining Steve Chase's Excel Bootcamp. His summer classes run Monday through Fridays from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Register online at sequentiasolutions.com/bootcamp. For only $150, if you mention the Cloud Accounting Podcast referred to you, you'll receive an extra $30 off. High school students are highly encouraged to sign up, and you can find the link in the show notes. AccountingTax.com has helped more than 8,900 tax, accounting, and wealth management firms map out a client experience through client acquisition, conversion, onboarding, retention, and expansion, with the goal of getting clients to pay more year over year. If you're looking to develop your practice and take it to the next level with advisory services, go to accountingtax.com/cloud to learn more.